What up YouTube, BonzEye here. Thanks for tuning into this video. This is going to be the first video in my new podcast that I'm starting on my channel called Yumi Story. So basically the premise behind this podcast, if you look at my channel, you see that I have a whole variety of different content on my channel. I have stuff from gaming to movies to anime to some serious topics about like politics, and then sometimes I just talk about like PNG culture and stuff like that in general. So in this podcast, I'm more or less going to be going through and discussing whatever I feel interested in at that time, and also depending on the guest I have for the time. So for today I have my buddy Allan. Some of you might recognize him from the 40k videos that I've been doing. Allan, how are you feeling today?
I'm excited. I do enjoy long form content online, so I'm excited to be involved in doing something like this.
Yeah. So Allan, as you all know, likes to discuss, so that's why I felt like he'd be the perfect person to do this first episode with. And so in this first episode, because it's an introductory episode, and I wanted to provide you, the viewers, with a chance to get to know me and obviously Allan as well in this particular video. We're going to the main topic of this video will be Melanesian culture, more specifically modern Melanesian culture, and we'll more or less be giving our feedback on we'll be talking about some specific examples and our thoughts on it, and so on and so forth. So you can get a chance to get to know us, whilst we also tell you about some, for you if you're a foreigner, then some new things, and if you're a fellow Melanesian, then you'll be getting to hear some fellow Melanesians' thoughts on some of these things. So
it's our perspective. These are entirely just our thoughts on the topic or on the matter, right? These are not scripture, You shouldn't take it and be like, oh, it's like this or like that.
With a grain of salt.
Yeah, it's like scale
Yeah.
Weigh it.
Yeah, I should mention that like we are friends from high school, right? We
Yes.
met in high school, and I guess we bonded over a shared like enjoyment of like having deep discussions and things like this.
Yes. Whether it was like comics or just like games that you would be interested in, or like movie universe, whatever. Yeah. So
That's why.
Here we are having
a podcast
discussion on camera.
Yeah.
It's just same thing, different setup.
Yeah. This time with a camera on that. So yeah, I think with that we can get into the actual meat of the podcast. So like we already identified like a few things that we're going to talk about, and if you look at the thumbnail, you probably would have already seen them. So those are the Wantok system,
PNG time.
PNG time. Yeah, we'll get into those as we go. So let's start.
We'll see how we go with this. The thing with discussion, it gets so like it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah. So let's start off with that first one then, because on this web was like Wantok system. So what's your well, obviously if you're a foreigner watching this, you probably might be a bit lost, but don't worry, we'll explain things as we go along. So like my understanding of the Wantok system, I guess I'll go first.
What's your definition?
So like Wantok system to me is like it's a system that kind of allows people who are from maybe not necessarily blood relatives, but if they're from a similar area, Wantok, which like the pidgin, Wantok is a pidgin word, and in pidgin it basically means someone who's in a way from the same area you are. And that can mean like a small area, like a district, or it can mean like a province, or it can mean like a whole region, like island. So if, for example, you were out of the country and on the other side of the planet, and you came across a fellow Papua New Guinean, even if they're from a completely different province or region, you'd still technically call them Wantok.
Yeah.
Because they're someone who's from some definition of local region, similar region you're from.
Yeah.
But that's just the word Wantok. In the context of Wantok system, it takes when you put those two words together, it means basically it's a system where if you're stranded out in England, like for example during COVID, I came across this story where it wasn't even between Papua New Guineans. So there was a Fiji soldier in China, and he came across, he saw on like a Weibo, whatever they have on China, or some of social media in China, that there were two Papua New Guineans girls who were trapped somewhere, and they had no safe transport. And because there was no like transportation was shut down during COVID, the unknown disease of unspecified origin, they needed transportation which they couldn't get. So this soldier, Fiji soldier, he went out of his way, he got on a bicycle, he didn't have a car, and he got on a bicycle and he drove for miles and miles and miles just to go and meet those two.
He rode on a bicycle
to go and meet these two Papua New Guinean girls. Girls were from our country, and then this Fijian, I'm not sure if he's Melanesian or Polynesian, but he was a fellow Pacific Islander.
Fijian, yeah.
He got them and he brought them from Fiji, from wherever they were to the airport, and then helped them get on safely. So that's an example of like an extreme example, like Wantok system taking place where they're not even related. He just saw that PNG flag, meaning like a fellow Pacific Islander, and he went out of his way to help them.
How would I define
it?
In my mind, because back in like when I was in year 8, they made us do essays on the things like this, for English studies and whatnot. So the English word they used for Wantok system was nepotism, right? Nepotism, and they were like, "Oh, is nepotism good or bad?" And they had us engage in thought-provoking debates that, oh no, nepotism is good and nepotism is bad. And I remember doing a bit of that in primary school, which is years 6, 5, 8, around there. Anyway, how I define Wantok system, there's nepotism is an English word, so it has its own definitions. How I define Wantok system, well, yeah, typically when people from the same area, locality, people of a shared heritage to a certain extent, like either could be your family, could be a clansman, could be someone from the same province as you or district as you. I know some cultures within PNG that really have this, where this Wantok system, they don't call it Wantok system. It's more of like a looking out for ourselves. It's a deeply, for me, I see it as a deeply biological thing. In that, when one from the tribe ventures out and is successful to an extent, and in my mind there's two sides to this. When one from the tribe goes out, there are some cultures within Papua New Guinea where for them Wantok system plays out in the sense that the whole tribe rallies behind that guy and keeps pushing him. They're in there looking after his stuff. They're defending him. The big man concept. Like he's a big man. So there's people that he doesn't have to do anything for them. They're from the same tribe, and they'll be there to be his security guards, be his drivers. Just basically look after his property and things for him. And then what they get out of it is that one of their own is going, and he's standing on a bigger platform, like a world level or business or whatever, and then he's there, and they're the support. And that's one aspect of Wantok system. That's like we're all behind you. You go, and whatever we'll be behind you as you go. The other aspect of Wantok system is when the other side of Wantok system is that when, again, within the tribe, when one breaks out and attains some level of influence or affluence, there are it's often the immediate family member or people who have at one time or another supported the one from the tribe that had broken out, that like moths to a flame, or like they're all there. And instead of the other side where the tribe's behind you, will look after your stuff, you go, and then once you create opportunity and once you're just stupid wealthy, there'll be more than enough, and the tribe has the pride of saying, oh, you're a son of ours, and
hopefully some development.
Yeah, and then we get a benefit like that. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is when someone breaks out, and then just not even the whole tribe, but a certain few individuals closest, they're there, and then they're expectant of
benefits from the guy that broke out.
Yeah, the guy that breaks out of the guy that breaks out of the tribe they're expectant of him to start providing opportunity immediately to those, like putting them in positions of power or giving them contracts.
Nepotism.
Nepotism. I mean, both sides, that's still nepotism.
Both sides are
both definitions in my mind, that's still nepotism. You're helping your Wantoks, but in the first sense, it's a more
you're pushing them ahead.
Yeah, you're pushing. It's like the one who steps forward, everyone's coming behind him and pushing him. Whereas in the other, idea of it is that the one who steps forward, he's expected to put his hand back and start pulling people.
Yeah.
And not to say that it's bad or it's good, but
obviously those are two.
That's my definition. That's
like
my
a coin. If there's a coin, you just gave us like one side and the other side, and
there's the two sides to it, and
you can see that there's a benefit and also a cost. It seems there.
It does. I would say probably the only time that it is misconstrued as a bad thing, and I say misconstrued because it is a principle. It is a biological program. Something that has developed inherently within us for survival,
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's the tribe mentality, the pack, looking after one another.
All animals and then other groups of humans too, they all have some element of looking out for the pack, looking out for the tribe.
Yes.
Tribalism is a global thing that every other culture has had.
Even animals,
tribalism
animals show these, sort of behavior. So it's a deeply rooted program.
I think and then I guess in PNG, Wantok system is our term for nepotism, but then I guess
I reckon it's a lot more broad than just nepotism. Nepotism has a bit of a bad negative thing to it, like corruption. It used to be that Wantok system became synonymous with corruption, but that is not so. Corruption is the abuse of power, or the abuse. It's nepotism works when it is done consciously, with thought given to the competence and
and also in a way that
as a means to an end, not an ends of itself. What I mean by that is like you eat cake someone's birthday, hooray. We have birthday cake, right? The birthday cake is the means to the ends that is the birthday celebration. So the ends or the point of it all is the birthday celebration. And the means with which we commemorate that birthday is the birthday cake. Yeah. So Wantok system is a very, very, very effective means to an end. Meaning that, entire empires have been built, or effective businesses have been built. If we talked about that Warhammer video, the Primarch, that's keeping,
nepotism.
That's nepotism. The people that wield the most power are all related to each other, or they all follow a single will, a sort of a tribe mentality. So it's a system that works. That's my definition.
I was as you were talking about it, I was thinking about so in at Yupeng, my roommate, he told me about what he learned about how societies are structured, and one of the things they taught at the UPNG was how in Melanesian society, the way our society is structured is slightly different, and this kind of plays back into Wantok system. So he described most Western settings, and I guess Asian settings too. The way they tend to structure their society is they structure it as a pyramid.
Okay.
So you have top down, and you have the people at the top, the rich or the rulers or the pharaoh or the king or whatever, and then they're being held up by each other level. But then the ones that are directly under the king, they do get are being held up by the level under them too. And so you get tyranny at the top, and it's oppressive each level as you go down. And that's how they will decide. So what happens is in those kinds of societies, it allows certain people to achieve some vast degree of wealth and become really famous and become kings in there, right? Even in modern societies, it's still happening. You have tech oligarchs instead of pharaohs, but they're still people at the top of the society. Whereas in Melanesian society, our the structure of our society, at least traditionally, maybe in the modern times it's been changed a bit, but traditionally we were structured in rather than a pyramid, it was a circle. And so what was happening is, because of how you describe the Wantok system, another way of looking at it is that like everybody's in a circle, and if the goal of the circle is to like expand the circle and expand the wealth and expand the family circle, you keep pulling out that. And then sometimes like a really strong, let's just assume that in this circle, as it expands, it's like the people get bigger and like they grow up. And let's say in this example, if someone is particularly strong and particularly good and competent, they can expand the circle out more than everybody else and pull everybody up with them. And the circle gets bigger and there's more wealth, prosperity, whatever. But there can also be a scenario where sometimes within that circle, some members are very weak and they're not as strong. And rather than them like pulling their own weight, they actually drag the rest of the family back. And so one of the benefits of like having a circle society, a society that's built around things like Wantok system is the means to which that circle expands and contracts. But so in this analogy, like the bad side of it is that you can like pull the circle back, and the good side of it is that you can have some strong individuals pull the circle and expand it. Whereas in the Western setting and stuff like that, it's like if you succeed on your own, then yeah, that's good for you. But then it's like you're gonna have like a lot of other like there's always gonna be this huge wealth disparity or so on and so forth. Like most of the richest people in Papua New Guinea still spend a lot of their money on the family, like how we were describing it. It's like the person that pushed ahead wound up like giving wealth back, and then that can be tried as the bad aspect of Wantok system. But then also it's like it can be in a positive light. Like there's so many stories of like if at UPenn, there's so many people you can just go and ask them. University of Papua New Guinea, sorry. If I ask around, a lot of students would tell stories of how it wasn't just their parents that bought their school fee, but their uncle, right? So their mom went and sold banana to raise money, their dad went and sold pigs, and their uncle helped their dad carry the pigs for hours. Not because like it was gonna pay for his own son to make it to school. His own son maybe didn't do so well in high school, so that's why he didn't get to progress. But he did it so his nephew would. And that's just like normal. And sometimes it can be not even just actual blood relatives like uncles, it can even just be someone who's from the same area, like same village, not blood relative, but Wantok that helped his Wantok son get to university. And so that's like an example of, that's another example of what you were talking earlier of like people coming behind and pushing forward.
That reminded me of a story that my dad told me. Pius Winti, I think the first Highlands Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't done the research. This is straight from my dad's. So I don't know.
You might have mixed them.
Fact check me. Yeah. So Pius Winti, the first Highlands Prime Minister, my dad said he was studying economics, third-year economics at the University of Papua New Guinea. He goes back home. His tribesmen go, stand for election. He stands for election. Bang, he's in. He gets I think like governor or something. And then that's how his political career. That's the power. No, he just came and withdrew, and then went back home. He went home to his place, and then his tribesmen said, "Stand for election, like you'll get it. You'll become governor." So that's like everybody, Wantok system, like everybody single-minded. They saw that he was an emergent. He was someone that was ahead. So they needed to rally behind him. They recognized his power. They recognized his personal power, and they're like, we're gonna stand behind you. So
this is way back before more educated people in that
way
country,
back when. That's when like the Highlands had only been discovered in like 1930s. This was like 50s, 60s, around then. Fact check me on Google. But Pius Winti went back home. They said his tribesmen go, "Oh, you're gonna begin your political career. Go and stand for governor." I think it was again Open or something like that. His district. You're gonna be the district member. He comes, contests for election. No turning back from there. He pulls out of economics, third-year economics. From there, his political career goes on. He goes on to become the, I think, Western Highlands governor. and then Prime Minister. So that's the power of Wantok system, when people who recognize you as, when people have a shared identity, and people within the group of a shared identity, they recognize each other's personal power, and they see that, oh, this guy is, they see themselves in that person. They see that, oh, me helping this guy is me helping myself. So they put all the, in Pius Wenty's case was like military and like numbers, right? Got him into parliament, right? They're like, yeah, you're going straight into the parliament, forget about union. He was like late 20s, early 30s, like our age, bro, like young, like 30-year university, bro. And
wow.
He's like economics. So yeah, my dad told me that, and that inspired me, like, yeah, Papua New Guinea, we're capable of single pointed execution, and ends, and then using Wantok system as a means to an end. Like I said, Wantok system is a very effective means to achieve political ends, to achieve business influence, affluence, whatever gain. Right now, I would say that there's not enough Wantok system. Everyone's so segregated and thinking for themselves,
I'd say maybe there is, but it's mostly the bad kind.
How so?
No, of course, like a lot of like stories, like let's say from like I happen to talk about that district where I come from. After I was staying like outside of home at this time, and in the district where I was, it was like, I'm not gonna name names, but basically it was like in the whole province, it was like at the bottom of the ranking in terms of infrastructure development.
Okay.
And like
It's very
rural, and like a lot of development was not happening.
Okay.
But the guy who was in charge of it there, his district was well taken care of, more or
Okay.
less. Even though it was far away from what was like technically the capital district of like there should be more development here. He he was like the provincial, was he the provincial? I can't remember what level he was, but he was at a higher level, and then they were like local levels under him. So his own LLG specifically was being very well taken care of, but the rest of the LLGs were not.
Okay.
Even though he was technically supposed to take care of.
Oh yeah, he was put in that position of responsibility.
And then like when you look at the comparison between the rest of the province and district, sorry, I'm saying the wrong term. So when you look at the other districts of the province, and then you look at his, you see that his was at the bottom, and he was like in charge of everything.
All right.
So that's like, I guess that's
why
example.
you would say that.
But there are other examples.
More of the bad kind.
But I think that I do think that there's not enough of the good kind. But I'd say that the ones the forms that do exist, like you said it yourself. You said that you think there's not enough, meaning that you think that there is some going on.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is I'm adding on to that and saying that, and a lot of the ones that are going on aren't the good kind.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. To me, Wantok system is something that works and works very well, and I reckon there should be more of it. And Wantok system does not equal corruption. Corruption is a completely different term, and it shouldn't be lumped in. There should be a clear separation between Wantok system as a process and corruption, because corruption is for self-gain, limited identity, whereas Wantok system is a method, it's a means, it's a way of doing things. Corruption is not it is a way of doing things, but it's not
it's for your own self.
Yeah, like Wantok system, it's not good or bad. It's just a method. It's like rain.
It can be
muddy. Rain falls on like clay, and then it just makes it all muddy. Rain falls on plants and makes them grow. Rain falls on the good and the bad, and it's just rain. It's just and corruption is like it's poison. It's like, I don't know, it's not rain.
Always bad. Yeah.
It's not rain. You can't even say there's a good to corruption. There's no good to corruption. It's just purely bad. Yeah. Just purely corrupt. Whereas Wantok system, you can't say there's a good or bad to it. It's just a means. It's just a method. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, that's very.
Yeah. Right, yeah, so
Yes.
my phone memory is a bit limited, so that's why we have to take a break
For
here.
intermission.
Yeah. So there was actually an analogy that you kept using that kind of confused me a bit. Well, I mean, I kind of understood it, but it took me a while to get that. But I wanted to sort of give it back to you in my own words just to make sure that I understood that.
Yeah.
So you were talking about Wantok system as a means to an end.
Yes.
Right? You wanted it to be like the means as opposed to the end. You say
Yeah.
that it's good as a means. So my understanding of that, as you were saying it, was, for example, in a scenario where, say, you have a powerful individual who recently assumes power, right?
Yes.
And now they have that power. There's two different scenarios that can happen. So if they were to use Wantok system as a means, or let's say an end, so
Okay.
that's the bad way. So if Wantok system is the ends, my way of putting it would be to think of it in that regard as a reward or something like that. So now that they have the power, they will use the Wantok system in a corrupt way. They will use Wantok system in a corrupt way to dole out positions to their relatives and give their
Money,
Wantoks money, positions, paid jobs,
Yes. Everything. Yes.
provide opportunities to them to benefit their Wantoks. And so like the reward of them attaining that power was to like dole out the value, the benefits to their Wantoks only. So they're limited in their interpretation, in their use of Wantoks. They're using the Wantok system in a corrupt way
Yes.
to benefit their people.
To consume,
To consume, in a nepotistic way. And then in the other scenario, if a Wantok system is a means as opposed to an end, in this scenario, this person who has now achieved a powerful position, let's say a politician or whatever, he wants to still benefit a lot of people. So now that he's attained this powerful position, he wants to fill his subordinate, his ranks, with people that he knows and he trusts to get the job done. And so he's using the Wantok system again, and more or less in a nepotistic way, finding people that he knows and is familiar with. But the goal here is the Wantok system is a means, it's a method, a methodology that he's using to fill these ranks with people that he knows and trusts to accomplish the greater goal of benefiting a lot of people. And so in that regard, Wantok system is a means to provide benefit to a lot of people. So it's still sort of nepotistic, but it's not. It's the intention behind it is more holistic. More
it is
good.
As a means. It is used as a means to create value, and as an ends, it is used as an end to consume value. When you put your people in there, and you're getting money and affluence and all the trappings of wealth and whatnot, you're just consuming value. Whereas Wantok system, as a means, it's to create more value with the people you know and are familiar with and trust that are competent, your Wantoks, but to create value. So you're completely on the ball there.
Okay. So I think I got that analogy. I think we can move on to the next topic that we have to discuss today, which was
PNG time?
PNG time.
Yes.
We had a bunch of different things too on the agenda, so we kind of had to brush through and find out. But I think the one we really wanted to get to was PNG time.
What is PNG time?
So what is PNG time? I mean, so like the basic layman definition I think everybody knows of without getting into it is that basically there's this common understanding in Papua New Guinea. I don't know about other Melanesian societies, but
it may even be like a Melanesian
thing. May even be a Melanesian thing, But in Papua New Guinea especially, whenever you hear PNG time, I mean, it's in the word PNG time, that implies that, people are going to be late. people are so late and laid back to accomplish tasks to the point where it's actually a culturally accepted thing, and it even has a name for it. And it's not like, Sipik time or Highlands time or Hula time or what. And you realize it's like PNG time. The whole country seems to have this problem for some reason. Where it's like,
I wouldn't say acceptance, it's more like a tolerance.
Tolerance of
people
this. And in the context of a modern society that goes by the clock and stuff like that, it is a huge issue, more or less.
Do you think PNG time would also include, in I don't know what about other parts of the world, but in Papua New Guinea, when a public holiday falls on a weekend, we're definitely having the Monday off.
People
is that PNG time as well?
I don't know, but it's just like people just kind of find any excuse to like sort of slack off. And we're laughing
Yeah,
right
no,
now,
it's hilarious, but it's not really. It's really
It's
not.
not hilarious. It is like a really detrimental thing.
Yeah.
At least in the modern context of like how it came about. But so one of the curious things that came about, and I guess I wanted to ask you this, but
Yeah.
I asked someone from my neighborhood about this, but maybe I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah.
Why do you think PNG time came about?
I don't know.
Honestly.
When you say why did it come about, like when did it come about?
When?
You
Why?
know?
Yeah.
Like when did it begin? And if it was always there, then the question of why would be like.
I mean, we'll circle back to why.
Yeah.
So I was asking this neighbor of mine, who's an
Okay.
older gentleman,
Yeah.
like why he thought it came about, and I even asked one of our mutual friends too, and he actually
Okay.
like, said something similar. So like, I mean, in a way, it kind of reinforces, and I guess it makes sense to me. So if you think about the way PNG is as a nation, well, this is, PNG is a country. We're a third world country, but then are people starving in Papua New Guinea? Like, are people
What
dying?
is a third world country?
I mean, countries that don't hit a certain GDP per capita or something like per their population.
Oh,
and stuff like
okay,
that. There's-
okay.
And then you don't have a lot of infrastructure development and stuff like that in place. So we're in terms of economic development and all of these like markers or whatever.
Alright.
We're not high up there. We're like low and 200 or something like that out of a country of 200 and something. So we are, by the standard metrics, definitely fall under the category of
By the
third world
defined
countries.
metrics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't off the top of my head. Maybe I'll put some figures here. But anyway, that's not the point of this. The point is the point I'm trying to make is PNG is regarded as a third world country, but we're put alongside other third world countries where people are starving for food.
Right.
These metrics are not fully accurate because they doesn't actually represent
The quality of
the
life.
quality of life in
Yeah.
PNG. We have people living in rural areas who are obese.
Sure.
That's a thing that happens for me. People here are not starving to death, versus there are countries that are also considered third world countries where people are starving to death.
Right.
So there is a disparity there, and I think I'm trying to circle back to this PNG. How this circles back to PNG time is
Why
in a
PNG
sense
time?
is that our people here have things in abundance, and also time and like dates and calendars and all these things. These are things that was introduced to our people in the last like 200 years or something like that. But prior to this, our people were already living, and they were living in abundance. They were living well. Our people were relatively well off. Our people were not, even when they were still living without modern technology and stuff like that, our ancestors were not necessarily struggling to get by. They had their problem with diseases like malaria and stuff like that. Like we did have problems here, but in terms of like food and stuff like that, our people had things in abundance. So
Wealthy.
Our people were wealthy.
Yeah.
We had our own
Traditionally.
version of traditional wealth.
Yeah.
And when you have wealth, when you're not wealthy, time becomes an important thing to track and manage because you're trying to like do things to acquire wealth. Like your time becomes more important to you. So if you're living in a desert, or if you're living in something like that, or if you live in a part of the world where they have the 4 seasons, then you have to plot out your planting and stuff like that. Like time becomes important. Time in a sense of like what season is it, but also time in a sense of what time of day is it. Time becomes important when you have scarcity. But when you have abundance, time is less important. So our ancestors had a relatively abundant life,
yeah.
and as such, time was not so much of an important thing to them. So they didn't necessarily keep track of it. I mean, obviously they kept track of it, but it wasn't as much of an importance to them. So in recent times, when white people have come along and introduced during the colonial times, they tried to introduce calendars and times and stuff like that. Yeah, they've introduced the urban lifestyle, and in the urban setting, yes, time is important, and individuals like Allan and I who live in an urban setting will be negatively affected by PNG time. But people living in the village are eating well, they're sleeping well, they do have their problems. Again, like I said, you have diseases and stuff like that going on. That's still a problem. We do have problems. But there's certain things that you won't say PNG is struggling for. We have in an abundance, resources and stuff like that. And as such, time, at least in the traditional times, was not so important. And so it's kind of this thing that has been there, and it's not ingrained, it wasn't ingrained in our ancestors to take it as seriously. And that sort of, that cultural thing, I feel like that behavior has been passed along. And the modern manifestation of that mentality is this lack of, like our people were not sort of culturally taught. It isn't ingrained in our society culturally to like be time conscious and stuff like that. And then we even have this accepted thing across the country of PNG time, because our culture is just like sort of, the culture is a reflection of the environment that our people lived in, right? They developed that culture as a response to it, and so they had PNG time. PNG time is just a modern name we've given to this mentality that our people have, and I think it will have to change in the modern setting going forward. But I guess that's sort of my long explanation of the origin of it and why it exists. And yeah, so that's kind of it.
Interesting.
Have you come,
so
you
it's like
across
it's
that?
it's like a sort of inertia. It's cultural inertia from it's within 2 or 3 generations.
Yeah, within 2 generations. But the more important aspect there is that they place less importance on it in terms of things that they prioritize on their day. Time was like further down because like in like let's say just 50 years ago, if you failed at high school, or let's say 30 years ago, or 50 to 30 years ago, if you failed at high school, you can still just go home and grow banana and you live the rest of your life fine. And you can even, like I said, get obese from eating garden food.
Right.
Like it's obviously things are changing now, but we still have rural areas where things are still like that. But the country is becoming more urbanized. Things are changing. But yeah, not so long ago, it's like if you fail at school, so what? It doesn't necessarily. You can just still win.
Do you think because they didn't have watches, they don't understand?
No, why would they need watches?
No, that's what I'm saying. Because they don't have watches. Watches has been this method, the methods of measuring exact time of day has been in other cultures for generations, bro. But for us, it's only been like 2-3 generations. Yeah. So that's that cultural inertia that, like, you can tell someone mentally, verbally, explain something, but if it isn't, it doesn't sink in. It hasn't sunk in yet, this importance of time. And it may also be tied, I'm saying, to because we didn't have the means to measure exact time. So we don't care about exact time. Meet me here at 10 o'clock,
One of these documentaries that I watched, Guns, Germs, and Steels.
Okay.
And I like one of the arguments that I don't know the name of the guy who came up with, but he said that like part of the reason like certain parts of the world like us didn't develop certain technologies is just quite simply because we didn't need to. We didn't need to. Like, we had the stuff that we needed. Like I said, people invented the calendar because they needed to track winter, because you can't grow food in the winter. So you have to know how many days until the winter comes. And so I have only this amount of time to grow my food. And the rest of the time I have to store my food. And so that's why it's important to track the days. When you live in, so that's why like these societies became more organized because they were forced to plan out their lives. When you're forced to do it, humans will do it. We're like, more or less, we're a species that when, we get punched in the face and then we'll do something about it. But if you're just there in the corner and you're just like, shooting us but then hiding and we can't really see you and all, no, we tend to just like ignore these big problems, glaring problems, and I'm not gonna name names, but certain glaring problems that are happening in the world, people will just sort of ignore it unless it comes and like spears them right in the back or something like that. So it's well, maybe it's kind of an excuse for people that I'm making, but it's also kind of true that like humans in general won't need to create a new technology, won't need to adapt unless there's a reason for them to adapt. So that's kind of the argument I'm making for why PNG time is a thing. It wasn't so much of a requirement, so much of a need.
So it is
but maybe if we had it, then if we had watches a very long time ago, the mentality would have changed and but we're too recent, we're too close. It was just 3 generations ago.
Yeah, probably like what's this year, 2023? 1930s was when people started venturing into the highlands.
I mean, that's a long time, but like let's
That's not a long time.
I mean, that's not a long time, but like
in terms of like evolutionary.
in terms of, yeah, that's true.
and
That's true. In terms
what
of
time scale
I was trying to say
in
like,
that context? It's like
but the generations that
two
have come and
generations,
gone,
2 or 3 generations. Like
2 to 3 generations.
my dad, like our fathers, grew up in the village, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then. And they wouldn't have watches or clocks, or it wouldn't have been part of the, they didn't have a big family clock on the, no interaction, no understanding the significance of being on time, you know? So it is sort of, it's a new thing that we're learning, you know? And I reckon PNG time, we shouldn't, again, we should aim to not use it as an excuse and be better.
No, obviously, as we progress into the modern times, it's something that we need to sort of let go of. And whatever. Like it, I was just giving a reason for why it exists, but I'm definitely not defending it, especially in the modern context. It's something that needs to change.
How could it be good though? Do you think in any ways that PNG time could be good?
I mean, the only way it would be good, sort of, is if you were to revert back to older technologies and like not living in a modern setting. But I think in the modern setting, no matter how you phrase it, in the modern setting, time will always be a significant thing that you have to keep. So I don't think it could be good in the modern setting, or at least I can't think of a way that it could be.
Yeah. In the industrialized and, you know, business, communication, information age, it has, I'd say, no place.
No place. No.
Yeah. Punctuality
is
king.
King and mistake. What? It's something you cannot remove from the equation. It has to be.
Yeah. Culture is something that is instinctual, that is biological, that is a subtle technology, a lot more subtle than anything the conscious mind has ever concocted. It is survival, you know, it is natural, right? As it has more and more benefit to not go by PNG time, and well, I'm sure it will disappear along the way, and it will be just like a sort of a relic or a story, or like, oh, remember, like there used to be this thing called PNG time, but now we're all, you know, punctuality, we learned our lesson and all that. But the point is not to be too hard on ourselves. Like, as with programming, learning things, there's a certain level of unlearning, you know.
Yeah,
like you empty the cup to fill it with a different liquid, so to speak, or
more in this case,
we have to, this PNG time has to be unlearned first, and to unlearn we have to go into situations where PNG time has affected us negatively. Yeah, we have to have that experience, not just the conscious, the conscious mental knowledge of, oh, it's bad, and seeing it's not, you know, seeing like, oh, it should be done like this, but like everyone has to experience that PNG time works to the detriment, and then the system will evolve, the culture will shift.
Because like when it comes to like trying to, like, how do we get rid of it? I guess maybe we can close off this section by like giving ideas how we think, like what are the actual things that would help our people stop PNG time, do you think? Like, I mean, naturally, as like society becomes more urbanized and stuff like that, that will slowly go away. But then, like, I mean, there'll always still be rural people to an extent and stuff like that. So, how do we make it something that even they will value PNG time? I mean, I guess, no, even in the future too, like, even you still, like, farmers have to still sell food at a certain time and stuff like that.
I'd be interested in what, like, you know, if someone was watching this podcast, I'd be interested in what, like, they'd have to, you know, like their version of PNG time, because like going from like what you just said about the how do we get rid of it, if I think if we in our own circles we can sort of encourage punctuality, and though I guess on a cultural level to eradicate it from the consciousness of the people, the Melanesian people, then the least we could do is maybe just in the urban centers make that like reward, instead of punishing PNG time, we reward punctuality. We could have incentives towards the incentivize the opposite behavior.
That's okay. Yeah, that's good.
That's how I would go about it. Instead of
that's one. Okay, at least one of us came up with one idea.
Yeah.
I think for the rest of this, maybe we can leave this to the audience. And maybe if you're a foreign viewer, if you know of like a way that a country that like I actually gave you guys like an actual reasoning as to like maybe that's not the only reason, but I'm pretty sure that's at least like a main factor as to why like our people have this like inertia to punctuality, to change to adopt push punctuality. But how then maybe you can throw in some suggestions on how we could like adopt punctuality as like a cultural thing. One good method I guess would be incentivizing. I don't know how exactly to incentivize, but at least that's the details can be covered up. But at least the broad idea, that's a good broad idea how to fix that. Okay guys, so I gotta apologize for that previous mishap with us walking out of frame. I'm not gonna lie, we're both two active people, and
conversation is just like the back and forth.
And like I guess that's the lesson for us. Why people sit down during podcasts, so they don't walk out of the freaking frame.
You live and learn. You live and learn.
You live and learn. So anyway, I guess we're gonna end off the podcast here. We had a bunch of topics that we also could have talked about, like we listed compensation and like for example bride price. Obviously the like with bride price, for example, there's a different, our definition of what bride price means would be different from certainly what the Western people would think of when they hear the term bride price. But I'm not going to get into it now because I feel like that's something that we could talk about in the future. So, but for now we're just going to end off this particular episode of Yumi story. And thank you very, very much. Do you have any final thoughts about the stuff that you want to leave the viewers with, about the things that we talked about?
Well, there's, like we began with, I'll end with what we began with, in that PNG culture, not just Papua New Guinea culture, but culture in the term, in the sense, is such a broad topic. And even just even we had a handful of topics to talk about, but even just two or a few of these topics, not even all of them, but a few of these topics, talking about it takes a whole episode, an hour to talk about just two of them. So it would be injustice to even think that we could cover a lot of topics briefly, and it would require successive episodes for us to really flesh out, and I guess a lot more preparation and research. But otherwise, I've had fun. I learned. I took a whole bunch of notes. I've learned so much from this. So, can't wait for the successive episodes.
Thanks very much, Allan, for tuning in.
Awesome.
And guys, if you're interested in staying up to date with the rest of my content, you can subscribe to my channel. Check me out. I do a whole bunch of other different content: gaming, movies, games, anime, and PNG, politics, world politics. I just talk whatever I want, and then that's why I have this podcast as a place where I can talk to other people and produce content that way. So check out my channel if you're interested in it. If you like this first one, sorry if it came out a bit rough, then it's just the first try. So just show some love if you feel like showing some love and like the video. Subscribe to the channel to stay in touch with future episodes. And in the next episode, I'm actually going to be getting in touch with a person that was introduced to me by Allan. So Billy, Francis.
Yes.
He's a producer, and he produces Papua New Guinea content for television and stuff like that. And me as a YouTuber, I thought it would I was listening to him talk the other way, and I found it very interesting. He was giving a lot of insight and introspective about how his desire. He has a dream to produce content in Papua New Guinea that features Papua New Guinea. And I just felt it would be nice, as me, someone who's also producing content in Papua New Guinea, but on the YouTube space, it would be nice to have someone who's senior and experienced in the television space and get some ideas from him. So
it's still Papua New Guinea culture, but in the arts aspect.
In the arts, producing content,
showcasing.
So, that's just a preview on what should be coming out in the next episode. So hope you guys are looking forward to that. For now, I'll say for now, as always, I'm gonna say this is BonzEye signing out. Catch you all later.
Awesome.